Hello everyone, Prime here. Aphrodite had several other names. Cytherea, which she earned by being born near the island Cytherea, and Cerigo. Both names, along with many others, were used by different cults dotted around Greece, these cults being dedicated to Aphrodite. Now, the different cults had slightly different ways of worshipping the goddess, but typically they all agreed that her universal name was Aphrodite. You'll find a lot of different depictions of Aphrodite being completely naked, or nude rather, sometimes found with some sort of robe covering her lower half, as you find some more images. Her name means born of foam, or risen from the foam, and Aphros in Greek meant foam. She was naturally beautiful, but the robes worn around her waist may have been her girdle, which enhanced her physical beauty. Doves, sparrows, horses, and swans were all sacred animals to her. Also, she lived her entire life as an adult. She was the goddess of love, beauty, and procreation. She was the patron of promiscuous women, and they saw her as a bit of a role model figure and, to a degree, their protector as well. Thanks to some sea-tossing business that we'll get into when we talk about her two origin stories, she was also worshipped as a goddess of the sea and seafaring. In addition, it was said that her beauty was incredibly infatuating, and merely gazing at her could have you turning head over heels in love with her. That's also important for another myth that we'll get into. Now, getting into some of her origin stories here, she was either one of the daughters of Zeus with Dione, a titaness, or during the end of the Titan Cronus' rule, Zeus was given a very specific instrument in order to castrate Cronus. And when he did this, he either threw the removed parts of Cronus into the sea, or white essence from the removed parts of Cronus landed into the sea. Either way, Aphrodite rose up from these foamy parts, hence her name, and she floated ashore on a seashell. This was most likely why she was credited with being a seafaring goddess, a goddess of the sea, because I don't know if you've ever tried to sail on a seashell, but it's pretty difficult, if I do say so myself. Now, philosophers such as Plato say that the two origins of Aphrodite represent two different beings. Pandemos, Aphrodite, the daughter of Zeus and Dione, and the other origin story calls Aphrodite Uranius. So here's a fun question for you. Which one of these versions of Aphrodite is in Smite? Aphrodite Pandemos or Aphrodite Uranius? Or do we have a weird combination of the two? So moving on to some of her more intimate relationships, we first up have Anchises, who was a shepherd who tended to his flock on Mount Ida. Aphrodite appeared before him, and I'm not sure what you would do if a goddess or god appeared before you, but Anchises was awestruck by Aphrodite, and he gave her a seed, and in return, she gave him Aeneas, a son. Later, Anchises reveals to someone, or a group of people, that Aphrodite was the mother of the sun, and he was struck by lightning. Now, either the lightning killed him right, or the lightning blinded him. But either way, we can both agree that Zeus was not too pleased, and we'll get into the reason why he wasn't too pleased in just a second. But their son went on to become a hero of Troy. Also, Aphrodite had a bit of a conflict with the goddess of souls, her name being Psyche, as Psyche was taking worshippers away from Aphrodite, and if you video in which I talk about the whole story mode of Smite and why the gods fight, you'll understand why Aphrodite would not have been too pleased about this. So she enlisted the help of her son, Cupid, to quote-unquote deal with Psyche. Whilst he was trying to do this, he accidentally stabbed himself with one of his own arrows. And if you know anything about Cupid, you know that the whole purpose of Cupid's arrows is to make someone greatly infatuated by the next person that they see after being struck by one of his arrows. So he fell in love with the goddess, and of course refused to harm her. I'll tell you more of that story in Cupid's Law video because I don't want to take too much away from that video. But moving on, from time to time, Aphrodite would aid Hera, even though the two of them weren't exactly, or didn't exactly like each other as much as other gods did. Such as the time that Aphrodite lent Hera a girdle her very special girdle that we mentioned earlier to distract Zeus from the Trojan War, which of course extended the Trojan War for her own gains. As well as being the mother of Cupid, she was also the mother of the goddess Harmonia. Now, moving on to the story, it was widely believed among the gods that Aphrodite's beauty would be so great that a war would eventually be fought to claim it among the gods. And surprisingly enough, Zeus didn't seem to attempt to ever take Aphrodite, which is funny considering the fact that Zeus's boundaries on that front are quite abysmal. Instead, though, he married Aphrodite to Hephaestus, who's Vulcan, in case you didn't know, as Hephaestus wasn't seen as the greatest threat, and was actually considered to be quite nasty and deformed. However, Aphrodite had no desire whatsoever to marry Vulcan because he was nasty and deformed and just disgusting. So, she not only betrayed Hephaestus with Anchises, but also with Ares. Now, we already know that Anchises was punished with lightning from Zeus, but when the two gods laid together, Helios eventually informed Hephaestus that they were doing some special couple bonding. Hephaestus caught the two of them mid-act and tied them to the bed before parading them through the streets of Olympus for everyone to see. But the really sad and unfortunate thing about this was that Hephaestus was hoping that the two of them would get some sort of punishment for, betraying him. No such thing happened. The only punishment they got was being paraded through the streets. No one cared about Vulcan, just like no one cares about Vulcan in Smite. Now, just moving on to some extra facts for you, Adonis spent half of the year with Aphrodite and another half with Persephone, as both goddesses loved the man, and Zeus' solution was to have them share him, after Persephone stole Adonis from Aphrodite and refused to return him. See, this story's funny because Aphrodite is the one who brought Adonis into Persephone's tension anyways, so a mistake on Aphrodite's part, but next time I'd probably choose someone who's supposed to be celibate, like Athena or Artemis, but whatever, I have no idea what kind of relationship Athena or Artemis had with Aphrodite. Probably a decent one, but then again, Aphrodite was a bit vengeful after a while once you get through some of the myths, who knows? Actually, that's wrong. Considering the Trojan War, the relationship between Athena and Aphrodite probably wasn't very peachy, considering the fact that they both helped the separate armies on the separate sides. So, they probably weren't good friends? I'm guessing not. Also, despite the fact that Athena was considered to be a god of war, the moment she got injured on the battlefield, she instantly fled to recover. So, Athena probably didn't respect that either, just going off there. And considering the things that Aphrodite resides over, it would make a lot of sense for Artemis and Aphrodite to be friendly towards each other, or have some sort of partnership or something going on, right? At the very least, they couldn't be enemies, at most neutral to each other. That's what I think, at least. Aphrodite also flew around in a cart driven by swans. Now here's something to add a little extra fruit to the video. Where would you put Hera on the morality scale for Greek gods? She slept with Ares for a bit. She was one of the causes of the Trojan War, who actually won a golden apple, which was, a bit petty, just a bit petty, kind of selfish, again, only slightly selfish. And she was also a touch vengeful, as proved by the whole Cupid Psyche situation. But she was the goddess of love and beauty, and life wouldn't exactly be too enjoyable for most people without those things, right? The patron goddess of prostitutes, so she helped out prostitutes. That's gotta be a thing that's positive, right? No? And she was forced against her will to marry Vulcan as the goddess of love, which, if you don't see the irony in that, I'm not sure what to say. It's pretty ironic. But yes, that was the video on Aphrodite. I hope that you did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and leave a like and let me know if you've got a god that you want me to cover next. Leave that in the comment section and I'll add it to the polls of the next video. But your next choices of gods to vote for will be Apollo, Zeus, Bastet. I'm hoping that I get to do another Greek god, then an Egyptian god afterwards. Give me some time to play the new Assassin's Creed Origins so I can add some visuals from that game. If not, it's cool. but that might be fun. If you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe, and until the next video, have a very good day. Thank you very much for watching. I have been Prime, and I'll see you in a few. Bye bye.